Ever since I was a young kid, hell, ever since that I have memory, I remember liking the character and the superhero Spider-Man. I didn't know very much about him at the time. As a young kid, I watched the animated series and I just remember the flashy action sequences, the colorful villains, the dramatic storytelling, the love interest. But I didn't know very much about the character until they made the announcement, or better yet, my sister gave me a poster. It was a poster when I got to see the poster for Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie. I didn't know that there was going to be a movie at that time in 2002. They announced it a year early, and I only got the poster. It was like an introduction of me saying, holy cow, I'm gonna see Spider-Man on the big screen for the first time in my life. My father took me to the movies on Friday that day when they released the movie. Then, when I got to the theaters and watched my first Spider Man movie, I was enthralled. I learned everything about the character from his humble beginnings, the tragic story that he had with Uncle Ben, the villain of Green Goblin, how much he cared about Mary Jane Watson, the heavy weight of being able to do this with the responsibility on his shoulders to protect New York, and how the people react to it. Some love it, some hate it, yet there were so many who were behind the web slinger. There were so many things that that movie introduced me to, and it was, in my opinion, the beginning for me of liking the character. So here we are in 2026. And my love for Spider Man has never changed. And I argue that he is, in my opinion, the best superhero of all time. So, with that introduction out of the way, welcome. My name is Enrique. I'm your reviewer, and you are watching the review for Spider Man Brand New Day. This is the fourth movie in the MCU Sony collaboration in which we get to see the web slinger in the MCU world. We get to see Spider Man interact with all the characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, seeing how he grew, how he became much better as a superhero, all the sacrifices and responsibilities that he had to do in order to become a much better protector for New York City and for the whole world. It is, in my humble opinion, that Spider-Man that is such a great character that you can put him with the MCU and you know that I will buy a ticket for it. But of course, everybody has their reservations with this. Some people say that he doesn't need the MCU for him to be popular. But hey, I'm just a Marvel guy. I always been, and it was because of Spider-Man. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be enthralled with all the Marvel lore, all the things that Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and Jack Kirby created for us. And this is one of those results. So here we are, reviewing the fourth installment where Tom Holland is reprising his role as Peter Parker, aka Spider Man, in a whole new story with a brand new director and a different type of problems that he has to deal with. So here we are at Brand New Day. We're about to take a look of what is happening in this movie, all the characters that are involved, and as such, I have to review everything and trying to dissect as much as possible so I can give you a little bit of context of what you're watching and as well give my thoughts on the movie as a whole. So, let's talk about the movie, but first, let's try to recap where we are right now. And for that, I need to recap all three of the previous Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man movies. Now, I have reviewed Captain America Civil War, and yeah, funny enough, this is the 10th-year anniversary for him and another character to be part of this larger of life universe. So, where we are after the events of Civil War? Well, Peter, now with the whole excitement of being part of the Avengers, or at the very least, be part of Tony Stark and wanting his approval, he has been spending in Homecoming the entire time trying to find something that could prove to him, as well as to prove everybody else, that he can be a capable superhero, encountering other types of villains such as Vulture, Shocker, and many more, screwing up along the way. But all the time, he's still trying to keep his head at bay and trying to realize that you don't need the approval of anybody. Hell, you don't need an upgraded suit in order to be a great superhero. That is the journey of Homecoming. I stand by it as one of my favorite movies of Spider-Man because it doesn't have to do something that big or epic like a multiversal or very dramatic film. It just tries to be a very light story with Spider-Man still trying to learn how to be, well, a man. And this is the series that introduces us to Ned Leeds as Peter's best friend who learns about his secret identity. We introduce to MJ Watson, played by Zendaya, and they'll become important people in Peter's life. And it is also the movie that help us learn, or it introduced the concept of the story that Aunt May learns about Peter's identity for the first time in movie history. So after the events of Infinity War and Endgame, needless to say, Peter goes into space, helps the Avengers, he gets snapped out of existence, only to return after the Avengers undo the damage by Thanos. He joins the battle, but then Tony Stark dies. And that is the story from Far Home From Home. How Peter wants to live up to those ideas that Tony Stark lived up to before he died, all the while being in a trip in which he was with his schoolmates traveling to Europe and facing another threat in which it involved a man called Mysterio, which turns out to be another a little bit of a trick by Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, in order to become famous. Spider-Man notices that and tries everything in his power to stop him, which he ultimately do so. MJ learns about his secret identity. He returns back home. He continues his superhero life until Mysterio left a video revealing Spider-Man's secret identity, as well as framing him for the damage in Europe. This leads us to No Way Home and the conclusion of the John Watts directed movies. So Spider-Man lives a life now on the public eye. He gets scrutinized. Damage Control tries to arrest him, and all the while he's trying to live a normal life before he graduates. Unfortunately for him, he is unable to do so because of all this, even trying as far as to get to MIT, as well as get MJ and Ned to MIT as well. So he goes to Doctor Strange, asks him to do a spell so everybody can forget who Peter Parker is, Spider-Man. Unfortunately, the spell goes wrong, and in doing so, brings a lot of villains from different universes, particularly from the Sam Raimi and Mark Webb universes. So, with all that happening, Peter has to find a way to stop them, but also has the idea into cure them from their own illnesses. So we get to see Green Goblin, Doctor Octopus, Electro, Sandman, and the Lizard, all with Peter, and Peter trying to figure out how to save how to save the villains from dying. But in doing so, the life of his Aunt May is cause. It was the ultimate cause. He loses Aunt May, and this makes Peter a little bit depressed. Well, not a little. It makes him very depressed, and it just is at the brink of killing Green Goblin. But fortunately for him, the previous Spider-Mans, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, appear to him, helping him to this young new Peter into this very tragic moment. They are able to help him to stop all the other villains, stop the Green Goblin, help to cure them from their own illnesses. The universe is about to collapse in on itself until Peter makes the bold choice into making a new spell with the help of Doctor Strange into making everybody forget who Peter Parker is. So at the end of the day, it was Peter who had to make the ultimate choice for everybody, including for Ned and MJ, the only two people that he has on this world. So he decides to make that choice, and thus everybody forgot who Peter Parker is. And that's where we are right now. Peter, after saving the multiverse, returning all the members from the multiverse to their respective places, and living a life as a full on superhero, we are where we are right now. Into what has been happening to him ever since that spell. So, with all that said, let's take a look. What is the plot of this film? Well, the plot is very simple. After 4 years of being Spider-Man, saving the city from all sorts of threats, being able to help the New Yorkers with their daily day lives, and more importantly, being able to be seen as a good superhero, even as far as to help the police with all sorts of threats. Things take a toll when his spider powers is starting to go out of control. He starts to have more new abilities, but in doing so, it starts to making him more aggressive and having him to suffer a lot of headaches. All the while, he has to deal with the fact that there is a new threat in the city who is being targeting damage control and trying to figure out information about them. And it's up to Spider-Man to figure out what's going on. Is this a new villain trying to take over the city? Or things are not as they seem? So that is the plot, and I'm about to reveal a lot of things. So before I say anything, it should be mentioned there's spoilers in this story. So if you're not if you haven't seen Brand New Day or any of the previous films, then I suggest you stop the video here. Alright, so now that I revealed the plot to you, now let's talk about the characters that inhabit this world. So before I talk about the principal ones or the supporting and principal ones, I should probably give a nod to those who appear in this film that not necessarily explain or being revealed who are playing. In this case, let's talk about the few strip villains that we saw in the opening montage and throughout the film. In the opening montage, we saw villains like Boomerang, Tarantula, and Ramrod, all fighting Spider-Man alongside Scorpion and Tombstone. I'm gonna get those in a moment, but needless to say, they were fun to see, and it was good to see the throwaway villains arc in this big blockbuster movie. But another villain faction that is here in this movie is the Hand. So this is still part of my Marvel Knight trilogy, in which the Hand, if you don't know, are big villains for Daredevil, Iron Fist, and hell, all of the Defenders. So they're a group of ninjas bent of taking over the world, or creating a lot of crime for their own means. Here they have a different function. They are actually working for damage control as a unit of taking down threats, but it seems like they are also people who have their own shitty businesses. Well, not necessarily businesses, more like their own goals and ideas. But they serve not only as a threat for Peter, but also to Spider-Man as well. Okay, they're basically the same. But needless to say, it's good to see that the Hand are in this movie. And hey, it gives us something that I'm about to get to in a moment. For now, let's take a look of the characters that do appear and are mentioned. For example, Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. So we all knew that what happened to Aunt May was tragic, and it was the tipping point for Peter to become more responsible and to not make the same mistake in which it led to the death of her aunt. So here Aunt May appears more as a memory for Peter, as a means to forget, make him remember who he is and not make him forget who he has to be in order to be a great Spider-Man. So it's good to see Marissa Tomei still bringing that charm and that level of knowledge or wise, how can I say this, to that level of acknowledgement. No, not acknowledgement, more like that level of aura of being the wise guardian angel that Peter needs in his life. And despite not being there for Peter, it's good that she's still there in his memories. And it's still the heavy reminder for Peter to not stop fighting and to keep going no matter what. Now let's talk about another mother figure that not many people know about, and that is Evie, played by Naomi Watts. Now, you're probably wondering, why is Naomi Watts here? Well, I'm about to explain in a moment, but needless to say, Evie is the AI that Peter uses for everything that he has to do with crime or his own conditions. Here, Evie serves the function to alert Peter about the impending dangers from other villains, serves as a surveillance so they can search for other threats in New York. He has been able to, Evie also informs Peter about his condition when it's deteriorating or it's increasing the spider powers. She's pretty much the voice of exposition when it comes to crime or Peter's condition. Now, why is Naomi Watts playing her? In this case, it comes back to not only great actresses voicing AIs for our heroes. In the case of Peter, he had Karen, who was voiced by Jennifer Connelly, and that reason is because she has a connection with Paul Bettany. She's married to him, so she's part of that AI for Peter in Homecoming. And in here is like a full circle moment. In this case, Peter needs also an AI to help him with whatever he doesn't know. But in here, Naomi Watts is voicing her because if you know the filmography of Tom Holland, you know that he was one of the stars that played alongside Naomi Watts and Ewan McGregor in a movie called The Impossible that came out in 2012. I remember that. I didn't watch that movie, but I did learn that this was one of the few movies that Tom Holland starred in, and it was the jumping point that he needed to begin his career. And many people praise his acting. So here, see Naomi Watts be part of this as well. It also is such a great moment because it's almost like another mother figure being there in a meta way, if you will, to protecting Peter. But it's good to see that Naomi still cares about Tom's career, and this serves like a reference to that movie and to their connection. And hey, it was good to see her doing a selfie of her recording the notes and the dialogue for Evie. So I appreciated that. Now, next we got Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, aka the new Black Widow. So, just like Evie, she serves as exposition, but in this case, she's a source of information for Peter whenever it involves crime. In here, she is giving information to Peter about the new threat, about damage control, and what is going on, even though she considers it a little small potatoes, as she frames it. But I gotta say, Florence Pugh as Yelena, let me just say, I'm just happy to see her. I'm not gonna lie, I have a huge crush on Florence Pugh. I don't know what it is. It's not just the fact that she's unbelievably gorgeous, but also the fact that she's just very meek and just very free. And in here, we get funny scenes of her in her office, if you will, or as I like to call it, her spa office. And it's just hilarious to see her alongside Peter in a pool. And I gotta say, I think she gets naked in this moment. I heard that there was going to be a nude scene with her. No nipples, of course, but it's funny to see her be a little bit more comfortable without clothes around Peter. And there's a lot of flirtatious moments between them. Or in this case, is Yelena is flirting with Spider-Man, even though she doesn't know who he is. But hey, it also serves as a connection to Peter and the Avengers, because of course, Peter was part of the Avengers, and serves as a connection to that, as well as what might come in the near future. But hey, it is good to see Florence. It's good to see Yelena and giving information to Peter and be able to kind of flirt with him, if you will. It's just, I don't know. Now, from a new Avenger, let's get to an old one. Let's talk about Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk, played by Mark Ruffalo. Just like Yelena, it also serves as exposition, but in this case, it serves as the exposition and as a threat to Peter. In this case, he is the voice of information for Peter when it comes to genetics and biological mutations. This is where Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner shines, because he brings a lot of information about Peter, about his condition, how he changes, how he has to realize what is going on when it comes to, mutation in someone's body, how to control it. And it serves like a very warm, presence for Peter, even though he doesn't know who he is. But he also serves the role as the Incredible Hulk. Here we see that the newest antagonist of this film mind controls Bruce Banner, turning him into Smart Hulk to fight Peter, but it broke something in him, and now he revert back to the original Incredible Hulk, the one that is more near to aggressive behavior and wants to smash everything. So in many respects, he is a new threat for Peter, and he has to find a way to stop him as well. In many ways, I already talked about this. I always wish that Marvel and Universal just can get together, or at the very least come to an agreement or compromise, so they can make an Incredible Hulk movie. I am always disappointed that there is not a Mark Ruffalo led movie about the Incredible Hulk. I already laid down what could happen in my editorial video. But here, I have to say, it's good to see him despite the fact that he doesn't get his own movie. And it was good to see that he not only got to be the warm, friendly version of Bruce Banner, but also the aggressive monster that is the Hulk. For many, it was the necessary character reset that Bruce Banner and the Hulk needed, because a lot of people are not fans of Smart Hulk. Personally, I like it. For the reason is because for Hulk, it was always about trying to live a normal life, but always failing to succeed. And finally, when he gets the chance to do so by suppressing the aggressive behavior of Hulk and just using the body in order to do what he needs to, it was impressive. He was the one responsible from snapping the world and snapping the people back into existence, including Peter. So there's a lot of connection between them. But now people just got tired, and She-Hulk, the series, didn't help matters. So people say we need the original Hulk that is prone to be more aggressive back into the picture. And in many respects, it's good to see the Incredible Hulk here, but we don't know what's going to happen to him in the future. Needless to say, it was good to see Mark Ruffalo back into the role, and it was good to see just Spider-Man fighting the Hulk for the first time. I always wanted to see that on the big screen. Now let's talk about a few villains that are short but have memorable people playing them. Let's start with the one that had 10 seconds of screen time, which was Marvin Jones III as Lonnie Lincoln, aka Tombstone. Now, I already reviewed Spider-Noir and talking about how they handle the character in that series. Here is pretty much a cameo, but I gotta say, seeing Marvin Jones playing Tombstone felt like just the perfect casting. If you've seen this guy play a villain in, say, Black Lightning, you know that he has the mere proxy and, pedigree in order to play a very cocky, very intimidating villain. And Tombstone is pretty much right off his valley. Fun fact about him, he also voiced Tombstone in Into the Spider-Verse. So it was good to see that he, for a small time that he got, managed to be in the movie. But I have to say, I wish we got more scenes of Tombstone fighting Spider-Man a little bit more. But hey, maybe that will happen in the near future. Now let's talk about a villain that did get more screen time than the others, and that is Mac Gargan, aka Scorpion, played by Michael Mando. This was pretty much almost 10 years in the making. If you remember Homecoming, you know that Michael Mando playing Mac Gargan was only a matter of time for him to don this Scorpion suit, but we never got to see them in the original movies. But now we got to see him for the first time, and even though he only gets a small role, he gets a lot of action sequences, and it was just good to see Michael Mando fulfilling the promise that was given to him all those years ago. He finally gets to don the Scorpion suit, fighting Spider-Man, involved in some of the most intense scenes of this movie. So yeah, it was good to see Michael Mando in this role. I wish we could see him more in other movies, that he gets to shine in Scorpion some more. But hey, this is the best compromise that we can get. Now let's talk about other people that returned to this film. MJ Watson, played by Zendaya, and Ned Leeds, played by Jacob Bartolome. So these are the two people that have connection to Peter, but now they don't remember who Peter is. All they know is about Spider-Man, and they have been in different points in their lives as well. For Ned and MJ, they are both now graduated from MIT, and now Ned is working with this new set of web network he calls the Spidey Tracker. He has been obsessed with Spider-Man and finding out who he is, so much so that he created a whole new network in which he's able to track down where Spider-Man is, where he's about to pop up next, and he always was a dream of him to meet him for the first time, given what happened in the previous movies. MJ, in the same category, doesn't know who Spider-Man or Peter Parker are, but she's still the same cynical yet a very independent woman that we met her from the first time in those movies. So let's go to the nitty-gritty of this situation. A lot of people are not fans of Zendaya's acting. They feel like she's just there because of her marriage to Tom Holland. By the way, congratulations to Tom Holland and Zendaya's wedding. I'm happy for them. But yeah, not many people are fans of the MJ character of this film. Some people are happy that Ned is back to provide not only comic relief but also very human connection to Peter, but they feel like his story concluded there and he should have just moved on and stay in Boston. But I don't know. I just feel like the entire point of Peter doing this was to help both Ned and MJ move on. And in my opinion, they get just as much screen time as necessary to remind us why Peter is doing what he's doing. The two people that he cares about the most, the only people that he has on this world. And hey, say what you want, but they still have incredible chemistry with Tom Holland. I mean, every scene that you see between Tom and MJ as Peter and MJ is just palpable with a lot of banter, a lot of sentimental moments, and a lot of comedy. I do appreciate that from Zendaya, that she can be able to be a little bit more natural around Peter, and that is the point. There is a little bit more chemistry. Same goes with Jacob, now playing as Ned Leeds. He still has the same comedic banter that he had with Tom in the previous movies. There's still a connection and a lot of good banter. With the help of the script, they are able to be more natural around each other, even though Tom has to perform in the spider suit for a long time in the movie. So I appreciate that. And hey, they're not have like great acting, but I appreciate that those two still serve as a connection to Peter in this universe and in this story as well. Let's talk about another character that serves as a moral compass, as well as the only person that Spider-Man trusts in this crime world. And that is, of course, Detective Jean DeWolf, played by Lisa Colon Sayas. I gotta say, a character being played by a Latina actress really makes me proud. And you all know why, because I'm from Colombia, and it was just good to see Hispanic representation be put into this film. Now, let's talk about the actress. If you only know her from the show The Bear, you know that she has a very spunky, very aggressive, but also warming attitude that you can get behind of. Here, she plays Detective Jean DeWolf, a detective that is a liaison between the police and the superheroes. Here, she serves as the role of not only helping Spider-Man with all the threats they are combating in New York City, but also a source of humanity to Spider-Man as well. They're not just there as partners, they're there to help each other wherever the situation gets intense. She is very supportive of Spider-Man, and she's very thankful that somebody like him is protecting New York City. Now, of course, Jean DeWolf, if you know her from the comics, you know that she's involved in one of the darkest stories of all time. But here, I'm thankful that the movie doesn't just jump into that moment and actually develops the wolf as its own character. And hey, it falls into another category that I like to see in other Spider-Man stories. You see, Spider-Man has a tendency to have a lot of female detectives helping him with all his crime fights. And it's not the first time, not just in this comic, but in other media as well. In Spider-Man the Animated Series, Spidey had another detective that was also like a partner to him, and it was Detective Terry Lee, who was voiced by Don Lewis. And also in the Insomniac Spider-Man games, we get Detective Yuri, who also helps Spider-Man in the first game to stop crime and trying to figure out what's going on with the new threats. But she also took a turn to the bad when she lost a lot of people and decided to become her own vigilante. So this is another pattern, but it was good to see that the original character that started it all was in this movie as well. Hell, you can argue that Terry Lee in the animated series was just an analog for Jean the Wolf. And believe it or not, the Wolf appeared in Spectacular Spider-Man as a rookie cop who was still there, and she wasn't promoted to being a detective just yet. Here we see that not only Jean the Wolf has her own connections to the police, but also has her family as well. And in many respects, she's also the voice of home for Peter, for Spider-Man, since she is also worried about his normal life. Because when you've been doing this for a living, you don't know if you exactly have a normalcy in life. So it was good to see that Jean care about Peter and Spider-Man in a different way just than crime. Let's talk about some of the characters that are the most important here, particularly with the not mentioned but also the villain, if you will, of this film. In this case, we have William Bill Metzger, played by Tremel Tillman. Bill is the one of the head honchos of damage control. He is one of the people that informs Spider-Man about the new threat and how it's using mind manipulation in order to get a lot of the facilities of damage control. Now, the reason I'm saying he is a villain here is because in this case, we all know that William Metzger, not only from the comics but also from this movie, that he's not a good person. This is a guy who believes that every power that can be bad can be turned into good, but who says that what is good or bad? And here, Metzger believes that by using mutated powers, that he could manipulate people or using it as weapons for its own means. He is pretty much a shady person who hides a lot of information. And while it doesn't appear at first, he definitely has his own secrets, and he causes a lot of problems for Spider-Man, even though not directly, but indirectly in this case. He is very confident, very cocky and friendly, but at the drop of a hat, he's able to be very shady and very cold when the situation is presented. I don't know very much about the actor Tremel Tillman, but I gotta say, this was a performance that left me with a little bit of uncomfortableness, but in a good way, because you know that this guy is just very dark and cold whenever business is about. And if you know who Bill Metzger is in the comics, you know that this guy was about to do a lot of terrible stuff, particularly with a set group of people with special abilities. Let's talk about a character that had a lot of screen time in connection with Peter Parker, as well as Spider-Man. In this case, Frank Castle, aka The Punisher, played once again by John Bernthal. Now, if you watch my original Punisher One Last Kill review, you know how much the character is just very intriguing for me, because Frank Castle is the definition of an anti-hero. A guy who lost everything and is willing to do or cross any line in order to kill his enemies and get revenge for his murdered family. Here we see him once again in the role of anti-hero, trying to stop the new threats and clashing a lot with Peter as Spider-Man, in which they have these different approaches on how to stop the threat. In this case, Frank's only goal is to kill the threat right away. Doesn't think twice in order to accomplish his goals, and believes that is the only way. So now it's important to mention that a lot of people are just not fans of this portrayal of the Punisher. People say it's too PG-13 because he doesn't get to kill a lot of people. But hey, I prefer this version of John Bernthal. And you know what? What do you expect him to be in this film? I mean, obviously, I don't want anybody to die, but of course, I want Frank Castle to do something, and he's doing this as well. Now, obviously, a lot of people will bring into the table that if you want to bring Frank Castle into the movies, that he needs to do a lot more violent stuff, that we need to see that ugly side that the Punisher has, because we haven't seen those in many years. The closest we got it was in Punisher Warzone and in One Last Kill, but here is very different. However, it's important to mention that I just love to see the Punisher, and I love to see the clashes that he has between him and Spider-Man. Now, it's important to bring a lot of connections between the characters, because this is not just a connection between the characters but also the actors. Let's start with the first one. The reason the Punisher is here, for me, it's fitting because if you remember from the few pages of the original Spider-Man comics, you know that the first appearance that the Punisher made was in a Spider-Man comic. He was an assassin hired by the Jackal in order to hunt down Spider-Man with his own sense of morality. Here, it's just revealing or referencing that connection a little bit by seeing Frank Castle contrasting with Peter and his ideas about how to stop the villains and how to put down the criminals. And it's just good to see that my favorite version of the Punisher is interacting with my favorite version of Spider-Man. Now, about Tom and John Bernthal. If you didn't watch my Odyssey review last week, I'll say it right now. There's a deep connection between between Tom and John Bernthal. If you remember, 10 years ago, they helped each other with the auditions when they wanted to be in the MCU. So Tom helped John to enter the role of Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, in the Netflix series of Daredevil. All the while, John was helping Tom with the audition for Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War. And they both were in a previous movie called The Pilgrimage, in which they were interacting with each other. So this is pretty much like the trilogy of appearances for both of the actors. Pilgrimage, The Odyssey, and now this, The Brand New Day. So this is just a continuation. And I gotta say, I love to see John and Tom interacting as Spider-Man and Punisher for their banter, but also for their arguments, their discussions. And it's just good to see those contrasting ideas and ideologies about how to stop crime contrasting with one another. But there's just a little bit of, a brother connection between them, if that makes sense. Let's go to the nitty gritty and let's talk about the antagonist of this film, and which was kept under wraps throughout the entire promotion of Brand New Day. And that is the character that the actress Sadie Sink is playing. And that is, of course, Jean Grey. That Jean Grey. So, you'll probably watch all of my videos with X-Men 97. I always believed that Jean Grey was a very interesting character and one of my favorite ones in Marvel lore, because she is one of those characters that has evolved from the previous pages of the original run of the X-Men to today. Now, this is a brand new version of her. If you want a little bit of my opinions on the original previous actress that played Jean Grey in other movies like Famke Janssen and Sophia Turner, and then here it goes. I feel that those versions of Jean Grey lack potential. The reason why is the same way I said in my Wolverine rant. She was just the price or playing crazy. For the filmmakers in those movies, they saw Jean not as a character with her own interesting backstory, as well as her own personality and her own trauma when it comes to using her powers, of her relationship with Scott and how many times she died and got resurrected, and her whole relationship with the X-Men. But in those movies, they reject that. They just saw her as just a love interest for Wolverine, or just as a crazy antagonist for the X-Men whenever she got possessed by the Phoenix. Here we get to see another version of Jean Grey that is none of that. Here we get to see Jean as a Wonder Kid. In this case, she doesn't have Xavier or Cyclops or any of the X-Men to help her with this new situation. She, in this movie, is the woman who has been mind controlling all the people in New York, including Scorpion and others, in order to find out about William Metzger, damage control, and more importantly, about her sister. You see, her sister Sarah Gray got captured by Metzger and damage control, and she has been desperately trying to find her throughout the city, all the while clashing with Spider-Man and finding out about his secret identity and threatening him to harm him and those closest by him if he got in her way. So many people have speculated what kind of character Sadie Sink was playing in this movie. Some have theories that maybe she was the alternate version of Peter Parker's daughter, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in the other movies, that she ended up in this universe. Others have speculated that she might be a new character. I was thinking that maybe she was Rachel Boyle from the comics, in which she, alongside Daredevil, Spider-Man, and Punisher, were finding the hand. But no, here it's pretty much the beginning of the mutant saga, and in here we get to see Jean Grey in a whole new light. She's allowed to be more aggressive, more hard, but also very vulnerable and also broken at the same time. This is not the same Jean Grey that we saw or that we see in 97 or in other medias. Here, she's a woman who is lost, who lost her sister to Metzger and damage control. Someone who has been wandering from town to town in order to figure out where her sister is and surviving. She has been misusing her powers all in an effort to find her sister, and hurting a lot of people along the way, and just drowning in this sorrow and desperation that she has felt. She serves in many respects as a counterpart to Peter in this film, because Jean is just lost. She doesn't know how to handle the responsibility of this great power that she has, which is telekinetic and telepathic abilities. But now, seeing her contrasting with Peter and how they using their powers, she serves like could be a reflection of Peter if he didn't have anybody anymore. I mean, say what you want about Peter, but he lost everything, but he still has people that he cares about in this world, and knew where they were, and still try everything in his power to be, a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And in this case, Jean doesn't have that. She just has nobody, has to live in the shadows, using people's minds in order to get what she wants, and just being an overall threat to the entire city. And she's in a point of almost no return, and that is something that collides with Peter and what he views about the world. So I gotta say, I haven't seen Sadie Sink in Stranger Things, but I do saw her in The Whale. She provided a very emotional performance in that movie alongside Brendan Fraser. And I gotta say, she definitely has become a different yet a very good version of Jean Grey. Definitely one that we haven't seen before without any of the restrictions or connections that she had in X-Men comics. Now we got to see her as a threat without being possessed by anything or even a cosmic force. Here is just a lost Wonder Kid doing a lot of damage to get her to her goals. Even though those goals were noble, she's just lost along the way and doing a lot of terrible things. So I definitely appreciate that, and definitely a good contrast for Peter in this journey and new story. Now let's talk about my hero, my favorite character, Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland. Here, this is a whole new story for him than previous ones. Here, Peter doesn't have connections. Doesn't well, he does have connections, but he doesn't have people that know about him. He doesn't have a home that is very stable, and he's just is spending his time as Spider-Man for a long, long time. He has put all of his energy into being Spider-Man and just rejected, or at the very least, ignored the Peter Parker life that he has been living before. Now he's just full on into the superhero story, but now it has taken a toll. Now he has seen that his powers are getting out of control, and he's trying everything in his power to control them, but doesn't know how. And this is pretty much contrasting with Jean and her powers as well, because now he sees a reflection of what he could have been if he had lost the way all those years ago. Here we get to see a great performance by Tom Holland, finally put to the ringer as never before, as now we see him struggle with real life. Now that he's living a life, a secluded life in his apartment, or in this case in the rooftop, and just putting all his effort into being Spider-Man, it's making him more stressed. You can argue that the power, the out of control power that he suffers, is a metaphor of him just suffering the stress and anxiety of living a life without any social connection, which is something that he lacks in his life, despite the fact that he's interacting with a lot of people. He doesn't have friends that could call him at any time, or just having a woman in his life that can be there to patch his wounds or to talk to him and just see what is going on in his mind. Here, Peter's just all in depth, but doesn't know how to handle, and he's been handling all this from himself, and is starting to breaking him a little bit, and it's starting to make him more aggressive and more near to be more almost like Frank, almost very ruthless, and to the point that he almost starts to destroy things. And it's good to see that Tom Holland's performance here reflects like how the character has evolved from the first time we saw him. He's still very funny, he's still very sympathetic, he's still very charming, but he's almost now turning to a whole new aggressive point in which he doesn't know how to handle on its own. And it's good to see that Tom's performance reflects that, how the responsibility of this great power that's taking a toll, and the spider is almost taking over his body. Now let's talk about the part of production design and effects. So, considering that this is a big blockbuster movie, you expect to have a lot of CGI effects throughout the entire running time, throughout the entire film, and for the most part it has. But one of the things that director Daniel Cranston decided to do for this film is to be a little bit more practical, particularly with the action sequences, with the costumes, and also with the action as well. So throughout the entire production, it was shot not only in New York, but also it was shot in other parts like in Europe or in London and in other areas of the UK. But it also has a lot of production into the fight sequences. I'm gonna get to in a moment, but one of the things that the director wanted to do was to make it more real for the people to actually see. It has some of the effects, some of the visual effects, but it has more practical parts that you can watch in the movie. Particularly one of my favorite ones is the Spider-Man costume. in many years, we see that the Spider-Man costume in the MCU has been used a little bit more in CGI form because they wanted to give this vibe that the suit was pretty much invisible and very high tech, but also that could fit into a person. But over the years, the eye caught up really quickly, and people started to notice that it was pretty CGI in some respects. Here, we go back to the production parts. We go back to more practical effects for the suit. Most of the time, we see Tom Holland using it throughout the majority of the film, and it really blends in. You feel like you're actually interacting with Spider-Man in on set, and it helps a lot that the inspiration for the suit was pretty much from the other versions of Toby and Andrew. Yeah, Tom Holland said it himself that the design of the suit was pretty much inspired of those men, and in many respects, it feels like a going back home basis. So I'm glad that they use that. They also use a lot of the action sequences in production for the tank, the creation of Hulk and Smart Hulk, the fight with the ninjas, and also some of the fight sequences with Mysterio. Sorry, with Scorpion. Um, but most importantly, there's a lot of scenes in which we can see that Tom as Spider-Man is swinging, and most of the time it actually looks like he's actually there. So I appreciate that level of commitment to the character. Now let's talk about cinematography. Because this is a different field than the ones that we saw before, this is not a happy-go-lucky adventure. This is more down to earth, more grounded in almost a street level story of Spider-Man, which is something that the character has always been able to relate to the viewer. Here we get that a lot of the cinematography is a little bit more gray, more. It has a lot of color, but it has some of the action sequences and dramatic moments to have a feel to it. When it comes to the swinging car, to the swinging around the city, or how the city itself in New York looks a little bit gray, despite the fact that Spider-Man has been protecting it for years, is given more of a winter kind of aesthetic, almost like it's almost about to rain, and most of the time it is doing that. But also it's important to mention whenever they have to enhance the tension of Spider-Man losing control of his powers, or having a rage when he faces a villain, or even when he is being putting almost to a control to this with the spider powers. It's almost shot in a different way. Even the fight scene with Hulk, it also has a more dark and unique moment, almost like you're feeling like the situation just got worse. And that is the whole goal of this entire film, to make the story feel a little more tense with this enemy that Spider-Man cannot see. Let's talk about action sequences. There's a lot of things that I love about this movie, and in particular, there's a lot of action sequences that really make me feel like I was watching a Spider-Man cartoon all over again. Whether it is Spider-Man chasing the tank all around New York while also evading the Punisher, or fighting Scorpion, or chasing the people who are being mind controlled by Jean Grey, and seeing how it hops from body to body, is also a very intense, also very fun sequence. But one of the ones that stand out the most to me are the fight scene between Spider-Man and the Punisher against the Hulk, and most importantly, Spider-Man against the Hand. Those two action sequences are some of my favorites in all history, in all Spider-Man history, because it's seeing both the Punisher and Spider-Man fighting together to fight the Hulk. We get to see how Spider-Man deals with someone as strong as the Hulk, and how he tries to evade him and stop him in his own way. But most importantly, the fight scene between him and the ninjas, the Hand, it's one of my favorite ones. There you feel the tension and the dramatic weight of how the situation just got worse. And most importantly, it's Spider-Man fighting ninjas. It doesn't. If that doesn't make you want to buy a ticket, then I'm sorry, you just don't like fun. Plain and simple. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite sequences of all time. Now let's talk about the soundtrack. Once again, Michael Giacchino is providing the orchestra for this entire running time. It's giving a little bit more of a dramatic feel to the story, since this is a whole new story for Peter Parker to be involved with. So it's only makes sense that he makes the songs, the soundtrack a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more sad and somber, but yet hopeful and optimistic at the same time, which is something that he has specialized all over the years. So it goes to the talent of Michael Giacchino for providing the soundtrack that gives us a little bit more to Spider-Man's state of mind and how he's dealing with all these new threats and his personal problems. There is a lot of things that when you watch this film, you get a hand into being able to notice. And that is the Easter eggs and the references about everything. So all throughout the film, we get a little bit of Easter eggs and references in regards to either Spider-Man stories or MCU stories. In particular, Spider-Man stories at the opening sequence, not only did we see the Marvel Studios referencing not only Spider-Man, the concept art, and how he got this moment, as well as how he got erased from everybody's memory, which is a nice detail from the producers, but also how they handle the opening sequence. You see, throughout this opening, we see Spider-Man not only defending New York from all sorts of criminals, but we also see him deal with a lot of C-list villains throughout the film, from Tarantula, Ramrod, Boomerang, Tombstone, a lot of villains that he puts into jail. All of these sequences are recreating like the comic book the comic book covers that Spider-Man always used to have whenever he got introduced to a whole new villain. So we get to see some of those sequences recreated in live action, and I definitely appreciate that. Especially the one in which pays homage to Amazing Fantasy number 15, the one that made the debut of our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Seeing him doing that in film, finally, it's just a delight to the eyes. Most important, that the opening sequence itself is also a reference to what Sam Raimi wanted to do for the fourth installment of Spider-Man 4. He wanted to do this exact same sequence of Spider-Man defeating a vast rogues gallery throughout the entire opening. Villains that will never be considered to be in big they're having their own standalone stories. But I definitely appreciate that they include the obscure ones and the shots from some of those comic book covers. More important than that, we get references to also other villains through objects and props. For example, the Shocker glove, which also belonged to Crossbones, was also used in this film, and it was used for Spider-Man to fight the Hulk, and I appreciated that as well. We also get references to Daredevil Born Again in this season, from Sheila, the assistant of Wilson Fisk, becoming the mayor of the city and giving Spider-Man the key of the city. Through a panel or a pamphlet of Fisk being the mayor in one of the alleys. And more important than that, we get to see Spider-Man referencing the organic webs from Peter too, saying, "Oh, he was cool, so I can be cool too." We also get references to John and Riker, which is John, the son of J. Jonah Jameson, as well as the daughter of the man who owns Riker's prison. We can see a lot of damage control reference here and how they operate. And more important than that, the inhibitor chip itself, it's also not only a reference to the inhibitor colors that the X-Men use, that they are put on whenever they want to negate their powers, but also how they used to suppress them. And this is something that a lot of people have brought up, that this creation that Peter used for him to control his powers or to stop Jean Grey, it is going to be the inspiration for William Metzger and some of the radical people who want to detain mutants in the future. And a lot of people have made this little meme called that Spider-Man became like Oppenheimer, the death destroyer of worlds. I don't know why. But yeah, basically, Spider-Man created the one thing that the Friends of Humanity and the Sentinels are going to use to negate mutant abilities. Oops, I guess. But hey, I don't think this is Spider-Man's fault because he didn't saw this coming. And most importantly, William Metzger is propping from another person's work. So that is pretty much a more product of people who are misusing the power for their own means. In any case, it's hilarious to think that now that you see it. We also get nice references from the Avengers whenever Bruce Banner is talking to the students. One asking about Thanos and how he never used the Infinity Gauntlet to create more resources. By the way, one of the things that a lot of people have pointed out, the girl who was at the school asking those questions to Bruce Banner, a lot of people have pointed out that that might be Cindy Moon, or a woman who will become a superhero like Spider in the near future. And speaking of which, do you know that there were a couple of scenes in which Peter sees a neighbor in which she's asking him that she's telling him that they live in the same floor, and Peter ignores her? Well, a lot of people are pointing out that that might be Gwen Stacy, that she might be the girl living next to Peter Parker in their apartment. We don't know that exactly, but we have to wait and see. Also, we also get references to Spider-Man's previous actions through his board of crime, as well as seeing Ned's board of tracking Spider-Man. We get to see Flash Thompson and the original professor that I think I can't remember the actor's name, but he was part of the original MCU trilogy of Spider-Man. So I'm glad to see that. And hey, it's good to see that there are still references to Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, and showing that they still respect the continuity of those films. I know this review is taking a long time for me to talk about because I referenced a lot of things and spoke about my mind about certain things, but it comes to just my love and appreciation for a character that I admire so much. And now we arrive to the part that I always wanted to talk about, as well as being the conclusion for my analysis and my description of what Spider-Man is, which is a Marvel Knight of New York City. And in this case, I labeled a lot of the previous ones, Daredevil and Punisher, through different types of knights of their own. I described Daredevil as a knight of law and justice. I described Punisher as a knight of vengeance and punishment. And now we have Spider-Man. What kind of knight is he? Well, he is the knight of hope and responsibility. Really think about it. This is a guy who has spent a lot of time in New York and arguably around the world is saving people's lives. What makes him different from, say, Daredevil and Punisher is that he has hope that we still latch on to. Throughout the entire film, we see Peter Parker having to live a life as Spider-Man almost 24/7 without the possibility of living what he used to live before as a normal teenage boy, able to grow and learn and to be able to do the things that normal people do, especially at that age. But one of the things that kept him from falling into an abyss of desperation and hopelessness is the fact that he has people he cares about, that he protects the people of New York, not because it's just his calling or because he is avenging the people he lost. It's because that's who he chooses to be. It goes beyond just guilt and remorse of losing Aunt May. It goes beyond just not allowing just a bad guys to go loose. It's the weight of being a good human being, able to help people and giving others the inspiration to be people of hope as well. There's a reason we all love Spider-Man movies. He represents a lot of people in different types of ethnicities, genders, countries, and even multiverses. You know, the whole goal of the Spider-Verse and across the Spider-Verse and hopefully beyond the Spider-Verse is that everybody can be Spider-Man. Anybody can be a superhero with amazing spider powers, crawling through the walls and swinging around the city with webs, whether created by own or organic ones. But one of the things that makes Spider-Man stand out from all other superheroes is that he's a man who lives every day of his life pushing himself to be better as a man and as a superhero, despite everything that life has thrown into him, despite the fact that people don't remember who he is. Even though he is living in a crappy apartment or in a crappy rooftop apartment, not being able to have a sustainable job or life, having to learn or having to do all the things that a normal person would just take a break on and not be able to fall into that despair, that takes a lot of strength and a lot of hope. And he represents that. Helping a young kid, helping an older woman, helping a person that really matters the most, even if they don't have anything to provide, is what Spider-Man is best at. His aunt taught him how to be a good person and how everybody deserves a life. Her motto is, when you save someone, you save everyone. And that sticks to him to this day. Tony Stark saw a potential in Peter that nobody else could see. And he saw that, and he knew that when he did the sacrifice to save the world, he knew that Peter was going to be the one to carry that torch, because he knows that he is a much better superhero than even Tony cares to admit. And he saved the world, but he knows that Peter is going to be a lot better. And his Uncle Ben. Now, obviously, this continuity says that doesn't have an Uncle Ben, but I'm pretty sure it does, just it doesn't say it out loud. And maybe the circumstances of his death are barely different, as we saw in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Now, the Uncle Ben always taught him that with great power comes great responsibility. His aunt told him the same thing. And I believe that that is something that he believes to this day. That is something that the other two Peters remind him of, because that's the most important thing. Power comes with a heavy weight of responsibility that you have to carry throughout your entire life to protect people. And Spider-Man has proven time and time again what is the importance of having that kind of responsibility with that great power. Unlike Matt and Webb, in which they made the asinine reference of when you acquire the great responsibility, great power will come. That is garbage. That is the misunderstanding of the character full display. When Stan Lee created this character, he knew that it's all about how responsible you are by acquiring this great gift and how you are able to use it. People like the Punisher and Daredevil can be inspired of because they believe that people have to be safe. Frank Castle clashes with Peter all the time in this movie about how to save lives and how to prevent more catastrophes to come and how to deal with the ultimate villain, which is Jean Grey. And both have different perspectives. Peter wants to save Jean in this film, and he does so. And he doesn't do it by punching, he does so by reminding her why it's important to have good memories of the people you love. And Frank Castle, seeing the selflessness of Peter in full display, in many respects makes him realize, oh my God, he's a lot braver than I thought. And most likely somebody that he will stand with in every future fight. And if Daredevil was there, I guarantee you he would have been proud of Peter. He would have been proud of Spider-Man because he represents some of the things that the Matt Murdock wants to be, and he wants to inspire in a lot of people. And that is that truth and that the truth and hope can prevail in darkest of times. And with everything, with love interests, rogues galleries, tragedies and victories, everything that Spider-Man represents, that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko saw into him all those years ago, is in full display, not just in this film, but in all previous films, MCU versions, Sam Raimi and Mark Webb alike, even in the animated versions that Phil Lord and Christopher Miller created. All those movies have one thing in common. Spider-Man is hope. He is responsibility. And he represents the best of us, our greatest moments. And here's something that I'm going to make a prediction before I close this video. I'm going to make a bold prediction of what is about to happen in Secret Wars, specifically with Spider-Man. I believe whatever happens in Doomsday, whatever circumstances are going to happen in that movie, I think is going to end up with Doom recreating the entire universe around him and Battleworld. And he's going to be God Emperor. That's just a guarantee. Because for Doom, what is his goal? Power. And power always comes with fear and intimidation. And he believes that power is absolute, that there is nothing else. I'm going to predict, and this is something that I believe there's a reason they casted Robert Downey Jr. on this role. And it's not just because of nostalgia bait. I think it's far beyond that. I think it's because they have planned a scene between him and Tom Holland's Spider-Man in which they're going to confront each other. Peter will see a reflection of Tony Stark going wrong. He will see how he's using this absolute power to control everything. And he will probably have a very emotional scene with Doom in which he reminds him that the responsibility of that great power, that it doesn't matter how powerful you are, if you're a godlike being, if you're not responsible with that, you're just an evil person, or you're just gonna end up destroying everything. And whatever Doom's plans are going to be in that film, which is going to be recreate a whole new world in his own image with everybody under his control, I believe that Spider-Man is going to be the one to stand against that, and he's going to have the majority of the scenes, or at least one scene in particular, standing against Doom and pretty much challenge his ideals about how to use power and how responsibility it's important when you have all those things. And it's not just a prediction, it's something that already happened. In Spider-Man the animated series, in the multiple part episode of Secret Wars, in the final part, Spider-Man confronts Doom about the powers, how he has the powers of the Beyonder and he's using it to control the entire world. And he confronts it about how he cannot use those powers for that he needs to prove that great power comes great responsibility, and Doom is misusing that. And that's something that is going to happen. I'm pretty sure that will happen in the near future. But to make a conclusion, yes, Spider Man, Daredevil, and Punisher are all Knights of New York City, representing their own individual ideas and actions and methods. And in my opinion, Spider Man is just that kind of knight that connects everybody together. But it's more than just that. Spider Man has been a Marvel Knight, or not just that, he has been an Avenger, a part time Fantastic Four member, a part time X Men, even though he's not a mutant. He has been in different types of teams and crossover with so many people that he's the one that keeps everybody like together. And that's who Spider-Man is. He's hope for superheroes, for normal people, for everybody alike. That's what I believe. That's who Spider-Man is. And that's somebody that I will watch in every single movie, even if I'm dead. I'm just gonna guarantee you, if I'm die, I'm gonna watch these movies as a ghost. What is my overall view on Brand New Day? It definitely is one of my favorite movies of all time. Where do I rank it along the other Spider-Man movies? Well, I would say that he's sitting quite comfortably alongside Spider-Man 2 and No Way Home as one of my favorite movies of the web slinger. And I'm not ashamed to admit it, No Way Home, for a lot of people saying that it's nostalgia bait, I love it because it's a love letter to all previous Spider-Man stories and movies. And Brand New Day, instead of going back to the whole multiversal story, which we already saw before, is instead focusing on Peter Parker and his struggles as a web-slinging superhero, focusing on his story, how to handle his life, how to handle the villains, and how he manages to rise above everything that is put against him. So Brand New Day is definitely a must-watch for any Spider-Man fan. I know some people are going to have fine problems. Some people are going to say that the story is pretty much referencing to previous ones and you have to watch the previous ones to see it. But I don't know. If you watch this film on its own, I feel like you're going to have a pretty good understanding of who Spider-Man is and what he does as a superhero. And in many respects, it's almost like bringing the character back to basics kind of way, but in its own unique way. Now, what this means for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I hope he continues, and I hope to see him in more movies because we deserve to see him in a lot more. So that's my whole view on the character, and that's my whole view on Brand New Day. I definitely recommend it, and I hope you guys can watch it multiple times. It already has surpassed the $1 billion box office record. So I definitely think that it's a welcoming change, and it dethroned Endgame, if you can believe it. So that shows you how much people care about this character. It's not just popularity, it's how it represents everybody around the world. That's what I choose to believe, and that's something that many people will see in themselves. So what do you guys think? What do you think about Spider-Man Brand New Day? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you find it okay? What are your thoughts on my video? What are your thoughts on the entirety of Spider-Man's run in the MCU? What do you think is going to happen in the future? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget also to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos. And next week, I'll see you next time. I don't know, but I am going to take a break from blockbusters for now and going back a little bit to wrestling or the history of wrestling. It's going to be Who Killed WCW again. So until then, I'm Ben Enrique, and I'll see you next time. Peace.